Have you ever wanted to get free critical damage for your weapons, spreading doom at your enemies, bring them into the abyss? Dagath is your frame. She's one of the greatest weapon platforms, and with these setups, she's absolutely comfortable to run to level cap. These are examples of setups. If you prefer different setups and have your own build, go for it. Feel free to share it in the comments so people can see more options. But let's start from the beginning. Why should you choose Dagath? Besides the already mentioned point that she's a great weapon platform thanks to the critical damage she gains from the synergy between the doom and her third ability, she has an emergency kit. This is her third ability called Grave Spirit. The playstyle depends a bit if you're using her argument, Spectral Spirit or not. But let's talk about her abilities in general. Dagath's first ability is called Word Scythes. They surround Dagath and seek out nearby enemies. Enemies hit by the scythes are slowed and injured with a guaranteed viral status effect. They also spread doom and extend its duration. This is important for later for your critical damage boost of your 3. The slow is capped at 95% with a total of 272% ability strength. A nice little gimmick is that the scythes are breaking objects around you like crates and caches if you want to use it for that. The sickles are auto-targeting enemies within line of sight and within a set radius. It is Dagath's Subsume. Her second ability is called Doom. With that ability, you are spreading doom to nearby enemies in front of her in a cone. You also stagger them and flick them with viral. When hit with the ability, they are visually marked with a cross. So here it starts to getting interesting. When you hit an enemy with your weapon while they're inflicted with doom, you're triggering Phantom Wrath. Enemies affected by Phantom Wrath are marked with a scythe above their head. You can store damage of every instance dealt by Dagath and these enemies. After 2 seconds or when the damage becomes lethal, the scythe deals true damage to the target. The maximum of damage redirection towards the enemies is capped at 100% and is reached with 286% ability strength. Maybe important to mention that kills via doom can hinder activating certain traits of your weapon, stacking galvanized decks, or activating contagious bond on your pet. Grave Spirit is Dagath's third ability. It is, like I already mentioned, your emergency button. Spectral Spirit is the argument of Grave Spirit. Immediately assume Spectral form. 100% chance for weapons and ability to apply doom. Kill outside of Spectral decreases its cooldown by 1%. This playstyle depends if you use the argument or not. If you don't use the argument, her third ability is a toggle. You activate it once for a fixed amount of energy. It is not a channeled ability. If you're running a Fisher and gain double ability strength and you're running Meta Ray, you can actually snapshot this ability. When enemies are affected by doom, you gain extra critical damage for all your weapons, and it's additive to critical damage mods like Vital Sense. When activated and you get struck by a lethal hit, Dagath phases into her spectral form and becomes invulnerable based on your duration. Afterwards, the ability goes on cooldown for 25 seconds. What makes the ability extra useful is that while being in the spectral form, you have a 100% drop chance for health orbs, which makes sure you regain her energy with your passive or equilibrium. So when you leave the spectral form, your energy is replenished and you're ready to shield gate again. If you decide to play around her argument, you immediately enter the spectral form. The duration is based off your modded duration. You're invulnerable for the full duration. Afterwards, the ability goes on cooldown. But here's the clue. You can shorten the cooldown by killing enemies. Each killed enemy short the cooldown for 1 second. Then you can re-enter the spectral form. In the meantime, you can shield gate and you have rolling guard. Dagath's fourth ability is called Rakhal's Cavalry. Phantom's Scythe are dashing forward, applying viral damage to every enemy in their path. It is your armor strip ability. You become invulnerable while summoning the Scythe, but the animation is rather slow. For today's showcase, I prepared 2 builds. I will show you a setup around melee and a build for secondaries. Feel free to change the build for your liking. Let's start with the melee setup. For this setup, we are running Corrosive Projection. Since we don't use the fourth ability to armor strip, Corrosive Projection will help us significantly. Corrosive Projection is reducing the armor for all enemies in the mission by 18%. It stacks up additively when multiple teammates are running it. What does it mean for us if we're reducing the armor of an enemy? To make it simple, we are doing more damage to them. Why is that? Because we're lowering the damage reduction of the enemies from 90% to 81.5%. So that means for us, we are doing 1.85 times more damage to them. Here a little note for the whole setup. If you don't run Arga mods on your secondaries or your Sentinels weapon, you do want to run Brief Respite for the active shield gating. Another option is Growing Power for more ability strength. We're using Blind Rage and Umbral Intensify for ability strength to gain as much critical damage as possible for our weapons in addition to our mold argument. We don't have to worry about negative efficiency since we do have a 100% health orb drop chance while we are in the spectral form. This was the Dagath passive of we are having a chance when picking up health orbs or energy orbs to increase their effectiveness by 300%. The passive doesn't have a cooldown. on, so it can activate on each individual pickup. It doesn't affect equilibrium conversion, but the effect is technically multiplicative with Amber Arcane shots, Energizing Shot, Mending Shot, or Restorative Bond on your companion. Duration is one of our main stats since we want to have a comfortable amount of duration for our spectral form, so we're running narrow-minded. Since we do spread doom with a 100% chance, we are not depending on range, so we don't worry too much about the negative range. Rolling Guard is here for the oopsies and for cleansing status effects whenever we are not in the spectral form. It will also help us together with Catalyzing Shield to Shield Gate. We are using either the first ability or Shock to Shield Gate. Our subsume is Shock. To apply electricity on our weapon, we are using Shock Trooper. Hold cast will grant all allies within 15 meters an additional 100% electricity damage to their attacks for 40 seconds. This will force electricity on your weapon. We are running Prime Flow for our energy economy in addition with purple equilibrium shots. The second arcane we are using is Arcane Fury for more base damage for our melee weapon. For shards in general, we are using 2 purple melee crit damage shards to enhance the critical damage of our weapons. We're running 1 yellow Parker Velocity and 1 yellow Casting Speed shard. For our Falco setup, we are choosing a classic melee influence setup, which is enhanced thanks to our Shock Trooper. We're using Volta Quick Return to detonate the Falco whenever it hits an enemy. In our case, we're running Sacrificial Pressure for our base damage and Sacrificial Steel to get the set bonus and to get the higher critical chance. You could swap these out if you want to save on former, but for that you would sacrifice critical chance. In addition to the innate electricity of the Falco and Shock Trooper, we are running Shocking Touch to gain even more elemental damage. Galvanized Reflex for the combo count and the heavy attack efficiency. Killing Blow for the melee damage on heavy attack and heavy attack wind-up speed. This will make it more comfortable to run. For more status chance and status damage, we're running Galvanized Elementalist. Since the Falco is our main damage, it will not be hard to keep our stacks up and we will benefit from the extra chance to proc melee influence at the later state of our run. We're gaining additional critical damage from Armor Gun Organ Shatter. If you have a Riven for the Falco, it depends on the stats where you would swap out the mod. For my secondary, I choose a Primer. You can use whichever you are comfortable with. I'm showing you here a secondary Fortifier Epitaph setup as an example. 2 things before we actually start talking about the build. First, since it's a pure Primer setup, we will not use Galvanized mods since we don't get the full benefits from it. Second, we want to use Arga mods on it for the secondary effect of energy spent on abilities is converted to shields, which will help us to shield gate. Another great mod for our setup is Carnistinger. Killing an enemy with a heavy attack grants 10% evasion and immunity to status effects for 2 seconds. We specifically are interested in the 2 seconds of status immunity, which will be triggered whenever we detonate our Falco, which will help us whenever we are on cooldown of our string. For the general build of our Epitaph, we are using Armor Gun Barrel Diffusion for the extra dodge speed. If you don't have it, you can use normal barrel diffusion. Lethal Turret for fire rate and multi-shot. Prime Fulmination for the explosion radius. Sure Shot for the status chance. With Primer setups, you want to make sure to apply as many useful status effects on your enemy as needed and with a guaranteed apply per shot if possible. Prime Convulsion for electricity. Here you could use Jolt as a 60-60, but I'm using the Prime 90 mod for more damage for secondary Fortifier. Pistol Pestilent for Toxin and with Prime Conversion together in total corrosive. Argo Seeker for status duration and as already mentioned, the secondary effect. Trickmag is giving us more ammo maximum. The Latron as primary is more of a safety setup for acolytes if we need it. You can also throw your Falcon multiple times. That is up to you what you are more comfortable with. The choice of your arcane depends a bit on what you're comfortable with. I personally choose primary dexterity, simply because Falco is our main weapon and we're constantly having our stacks up. For more base damage, we're using semi-rifle cannonade. I choose a viral heat setup in addition with galvanized chamber for the multi-shot. Since the cannon is a radial attack, we don't use galvanized aptitude. For more bonus damage on the next shot, we are equipping the argument double tap. A different approach for Dagath is a setup for secondaries. In this case, we're running a secondary fortifier setup with Amamoru. Here is one example of a build. Our aura is once again corrosive projection for the same reason as the melee setup. For our shield gate, we are running catalyzing shield with vigilant vigor and fast deflection. Catalyzing shield is reducing our shield to a minimum of 50 and at the same time fixing our shield gate to a fixed time of 1.33 seconds. So whenever we are getting hit, we have an invulnerability phase of 1.33 seconds, and with the help of the research mod in addition to the Argo mods, we recharge our shield fast enough. We are running rolling guard to cleanse all unwanted status effects, or if we need an extra second to recharge our shields. For this setup, I choose to run transit fortitude instead of blind bridge. Since you are classic shield gating, I prefer to not run negative efficiency and your damage is enough. If you feel comfortable enough with blind bridge, feel free to swap that out. In addition, for extra ability strength, we are running Umbral Intensify and Mode Augmented. For our energy economy, we are running Prime Prime Flow with 1 purple Tauforge Equilibrium shard. Archon Stretch gives us a bit more range for our build and is being activated by our Sentinel. The second Arcane we are running is Arcane Precision for base damage for our secondary. Dual Toxicist is one of the strongest secondaries we currently have in the game. It is a good choice to take to Lava Cup since it has reliable enough damage. I choose a secondary Fortifier setup since the Overgut is an extra layer of protection for our Shield Gate setup. We're running Prime Target Cracker and Prime Pistol Gambit for critical chance and critical damage. Merciless Gunfight adds to that in addition to Punch Through. Galvanized Diffusion is here for the multi-shot, same as Lethal Turret, which support us with fire rate as well. Prime Conversion will combine with the unique trait of the weapon to Corrosive. Predators is a great utility weapon that, thanks to the incarnate form, is a great way to gain extra movement speed and parkour velocity. You can technically even save the parkour velocity shard if you want to. For our primary, we are choosing the Vermisplitter Kit Gun as a primer setup. This is a similar setup to the Epitaph, just that we can't equip Argomots nor Carnisting. We will outsource these to our Sentinel. Here's one example of a build. We are trying to apply as many different status effects as possible in addition to Split Chamber for multi-shot, Speed Trigger for fire rate, and Continue Misery for status duration. For Arcane we're choosing Pax Charge and Primary Crooks for this setup for extra status chance. For shards we're running 1 Tauforge Purple Equilibrium shard, 1 Yellow Casting Speed shard, and 1 Tauforge Green Corrosive stack shards. If you don't have a Tauforge Green shard, you do want to run 2 normal green shards. The rest of the shards are up to you. You could either run more ability strength or parkour velocity. For Sentinels, here it depends a bit of your choice of your weapon and your setup. If you choose a melee setup, you are a bit more free to choose since you already have your Argomots. Here you could choose to run Deriga with Verglas. Here's an example for Deriga and Verglas. You do need a critical chance rhythm for your Verglas to be able to activate Tenacious Bond on Deriga. Synth Deconstruct will help you with your energy economy. Duplex Bond is a great way for crowd control, and Manifold Bond is needed to apply the status effects of the weapons. Here's an example of a Verglas build. Once again, our main goal is to apply as many status effects as possible. In addition to that, we're using Shivering Contagion to spread the status effect even further. If you don't run your Argomots on the secondaries, you do want to run your Argomots on your Sentinel weapon. For that, I'd suggest the Burst Laser Prime. The Deriga build doesn't change. Here's an example of the Burst Laser Prime. In this case, Prime Pistol Gambit is enough for Tenacious Bond. Other than that, we do want to have the Argomots equipped and making sure we do have a decent amount of status chance thanks to Sure Shot and the 60/60 mods. I choose Survivor Magnetic setups with additional fire rate and multi-shot thanks to Lethal Turret. Which weapons have you tried with Dagath? What is your favorite so far? Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on Twitch.